Well, hi there. This week we are going to be working on another watercolor project. We are going to be doing a piece of fruit, specifically an avocado. So what you are going to need, you're going to need a pencil and an eraser. You're going to need your watercolors, your two brushes, clean water, and salt, and the paper you get in class, and a reference photo. And I think that's it. So the first thing we are going to do is, well, after we find our reference photo, is sketch out our avocado on our paper. Avocados are all weird shapes. So I'm just going to kind of copy this one. I want to fill up my paper. All right. Now you can do 1/2 of the avocado if you would like. I would prefer the half with the pit if you're only going to do 1/2. So I will do, well, yeah, I'll do the pitless side too. Now, will these match up? Probably not. If you were to put them together, no, they definitely would not. I have one too small. All right, so the goal of our watercolor project this week is to do some color mixing. We're going to mix with our limited palette, our 5 colors, and we are going to mix a couple of various shades of green, some shades of brown, and then we are going to put in a background, and we're going to do some salt. We're going to do a salt effect with our background. So that should be lots of fun. It's really fun to see what salt does. All right, those are fairly close together. Make sure I'm in frame. All right, so I'm going to kind of sketch in my pit as well. Okay, so there's my avocado. A good start, and like usual, we're going to kind of erase our lines a little bit. Pencil lines are okay to see in watercolor. It's not a huge deal, but those are pretty heavy lines, and so I would much rather not drag those through the paint. So just going to lighten them up like we've done with every other project. Just lightly drag your big eraser over it. All right, that's all there is to setting up this project. So now we are going to get into our color mixing. So we have our 5 colors. We have lamp black, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, magenta, and cadmium yellow. So first thing we're going to do with watercolor is we start with the lightest color and work our way darker. So this is kind of a yellowy in some of these areas, fairly yellow. So I'm going to pull out some yellow, and I know, well, I can probably draw in my little pit area. The middle of this pit area is fairly yellow, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in some yellow there as kind of my lightest color. So I'm going to get some in there. Now that's kind of heavy-handed, so I'm going to rinse off my brush, and I'm just going to add some more water, because more water equals lighter color. And I can actually probably do my whole first layer here with light yellow, because it's very kind of creamy color. So I am going to go all the way around my avocado in a very light yellow. So cad yellow all on its own, all the way around my avocado. And a paper towel. You also need a paper towel. I do have one somewhere. And I'm going to do the same over here. You can tape your paper down if you would like, but I think we're going to let it dry in between most of the layers so you don't have to. Remember not to scrub with your brush. You just kind of make sure all the bristles are going in the same direction. Don't go against the bristles. You can drag them sideways, you can drag them any which way, but don't push, if that should make sense. All right, there's my first layer. So while that's drying, I'm going to mix up a really light green, kind of a spring green. So I'm going to take a little bit more yellow. And how do we get green? We add blue, just a little touch of blue. That might be too much blue actually. So I'm going to pick up a little more yellow. And I think I'm just going to keep making the same color back and forth. There we go. So that's kind of a springy green. And I'm going to go around the edge. Ooh, maybe not green enough. So I didn't like that color, so I could just lift it off with my paper towel. And I guess I do need a little more blue. Make sure you mix it up really well. And let's try that. That's much better. I'm going to go around the edge of my avocado. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up some clean water and I'm going to just touch the edge of my avocado, and I'm going to let that color kind of come out towards the middle. Okay, so you can see it just kind of flows out to the edge of the water. And I got a little too much pigment, so I'm going to lift some of that up. And I can kind of drag that around. All right, I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. So I'm going to stir up my green again because the ultramarine blue likes to separate from the yellow. So I'm going to go around. Now I can also put some more in here if I feel like that got too light. All right, I'm going to take my clean water and I'm going to run around the edge. All right, I'm going to drop a little bit more color on some of these edges. All right. Now I'm going to go in and do this pit area a little more because I feel like that kind of blended into everything. I'm going to take a little burnt sienna and make that a little bit darker. I'm going to come and now it seems like my light source in this picture is coming maybe this way. So there's a big heavy shadow right here, and there's a big shadow here, and you can see the shadow in the pit, which is where this darker kind of mustardy color is coming from. And touch the edge and let that kind of run out. All right, we got more work to do on that still, but all right, that's still pretty wet. Let's see. I like to use a reference photo because it's nice to be able to read the picture. Even if we don't get it 100% accurate, we at least have something to go on. All right, I'm going to dry this and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so it's fairly dry, not 100%, but it's fairly dry. So I'm noticing this is a little light, so I'm going to make another green. So I'm going to grab more yellow. Remember, we always mix with the lightest color and then we add the dark in. I'm going to grab a little bit of blue. That might be too much. We'll see. That's kind of a good green. Test it on. That's a greeny green. All right, so we're going to use this green. And I'm going to water it down a little bit. And I'm going to go over this again. Just right on the edge. Doesn't have to be perfect. Clean off my brush, grab some clean water, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm actually going out quite a ways. I'm actually putting about, I don't know, half-inch of wet area so the water can bleed and go where it wants to go. My dogs are gonna bark. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing on this avocado. So a nice thin layer. And it seems silly that we do this in layers, that we would put that lighter layer down and then go over it with another layer, but there'll be spots where you can see the under color, and it just adds so much more character and life to your painting that it's really an important step. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna drag some water. And let it move around. Watercolor is meant to have kind of a mind of its own. Which some of us who fight perfectionism kind of struggle with, because we like to be in control of where things go. And that's not one of watercolor's characteristics. It doesn't like to be controlled. You can tell if it's been controlled. So we're gonna let that kind of do its thing. We could drop in some dark again, like we did. Oops, that dried up too much. All right, so we're gonna let that dry and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. So I got that dry for the most part. Okay, and you can see it's not identical. It has all these little blooms and fuzzy lines and all kinds of movement within it, and that's what watercolor's best for. All right, so I am going to work on my little pit and take my red sienna. It's going to be my lightest color. So I'm just going to put that in my pit. Cover the whole thing. Again, light watercolor, we work light to dark. So that's going to be my lightest spot of brown. All right, I'll let that dry a little bit. I'm going to pick up a little bit more brown. I'm just going to keep adding layers. I actually didn't let that dry, so that's all right. I just have to stay away from that highlight area. Because the pit is the only thing that is round, the top of the avocado is flat-ish. Just dropping in color and letting it move around. All right, right, so I noticed this pit area over here is a little more green. So I'm going to add some green to this brown, and I'm going to add some of that over here. Just trying to create that shadow. All right, that pit's got to dry. I am going to outline my avocado. So I'm going to take my little guy and I'm going to create, actually I'm going to take my bigger guy, create a dark brown, and then I'm going to line. So I'm going to take out some burnt sienna and make a nice dark brown. If I really want to get accurate, I can make it a dark green, but we'll see. I mean, from the angle here, you can't really tell that there's any green in that. So I am taking my dark brown. Now, some of you have bigger brushes than this, and what you want to do is create a point with your brush as best you can. So kind of roll your brush in the paint, and it should create a tip. Some of you, your bigger brush has a better tip, so you could do the same. You could just kind of roll your brush and try and get a tip, and then you want to get on the very edge. You want to be up on the very edge of your brush. Hardly any of it touching. That might not actually be a dark enough brown. There we go. Okay, so if you need to use your bigger brush, just make sure and roll it to get a nice tip. Or you can use your smaller brush. If your brush got a little frayed, try your bigger brush. Oops, I just stuck my arm in my paint. Okay, so we're painting a nice edge around. You can go right on the outside of the green. Turn your paper if you need to. Now, this is a very uneven edge, so if it gets a little thick in some spots, that's okay. But try to keep it really thin. Work on your brush control. Be careful not to stick your arm in it. Okay, so remember the point of the lesson is for color mixing, and then we're going to do the salt in a little bit. But mix up some great colors. This color palette really works well for this avocado. It'll work well for other fruit too, and you're welcome to do a different fruit if you want to rise to the challenge, but avocado is actually kind of fun. They're kind of a quirky little fruit. Alright, and let's do this one. Don't stick your arm in the paint. The nice thing about watercolor is if you make a mistake, most of the time you can clean it up with a paper towel. Obviously, not always. Obviously, there's always the exception to the rule, but for the most part, any mistake, a little water and a paper towel will clean up. All right, there is my outline of my avocado. That's still kind of wet, so let's add the shadow in. Avocado is sitting on a table, so we're going to add dark shadow in. And we take our water and just kind of fade it out. So much easier with watercolor than it was with, say, colored pencil. Okay, so I got that a little bit too dark, so I'm going to pick it up with my paper towel and redo there. And we'll let that dry. Okay, I'm going to let that shadow dry, and then I'm going to add this shadow. Go right off the page. Okay, that makes it look like it's sitting on the page a little bit more. Don't worry, we're going to add a background color, so. All right, let's darken up this pit. So I'm going to take my sienna, make that a little bit darker. Add a touch of blue. To change the shade of it. It's more of a gray. So this side is going to get a little bit more of a heavy line. let that dry again. Get a little bit darker in here. You can almost get a really paint by number effect if you try. But I'm going to soften those lines a little bit. All right. Okay. I think that's getting a little bit more dimension. I think I need a little more black in here though. Okay, so sorry about that. All right, so I added a little more black there. I'm going to soften up this little highlight. Oops, that got black on my... I just messed all that up. Look at me. Soften that a little bit. Okay, I'm going to do the background while that dries, and then we'll finish it up. Okay, so for the background, we are going to just mix up a color. I think I'm going to, since these are green, I'm going to do something kind of complementary. So I'm going to go with some sort of magenta color. Take magenta. And I'm probably going to put in a touch of blue. And a touch of yellow. Kind of a raspberry. Yeah, I'll go with that. All right. I think all of my background stuff is dry. So I need lots of water. I'm going to put a light wash, just like we did before, of color right up to the edge of my avocado. And I can go right over the shadow. It'll blend a little bit, but mostly because it's not quite dry. All right, and as I go along, dragging out this color, I might re-wet a little bit. I am going to start dropping in some salt. So put a little color down. Add some water. Add a little bit of salt. did not make enough color, so I hate when I do that. Blue, because you never, ever, ever get the same color. Very rarely. See, that's a totally different color. That's all right. That's more of a raspberry. I mean, it's not totally different. It's much more similar than I thought it was, but. Okay, so we're gonna get our wash, some water down, and then we're gonna drop in some salt. Be careful around your avocado so you don't get color in there. Now I'm just using normal table salt. We should have practiced this in class. Oh, don't stick your paintbrush in the salt. You can, I'm going to give you some salt in class, but if you want to try like a coarser salt, this is just table salt. But if you want to try chunkier salt, you are welcome to. If you have some at home that you can grab. Alright, you can see kind of the fun effects it's leaving behind, but you have to let it dry completely before you can wipe it off. Alright, the only thing I have left is a little bit of shadow on my avocado pit. So this is a big wet mess, but I am just going to put a little shadow right here. And then, like always, just going to soften that with a little water. And let it do its thing. Alright, I'm going to let that dry completely, and then I will be back to show you what to do next. Alright, now that our painting is dry, we have one final step to do, and that is to get the salt off of your painting. So don't just wipe it off on the carpet, don't just wipe it off on the table and make a big mess for somebody else to clean up. Make sure you take your trash, take your trash can or whatever, and then you just want to make sure it's 100% dry, and just rub your fingers over the salt. And it will come off. Now you can see there's some blue. That's where that ultramarine blue kind of granulates. And so that's what you're seeing there. You're seeing some separation of color, which just adds to the interest. Alright. So once you get it all rubbed off, you are complete. So I hope you guys have a lot of fun with this one. First years you will do the avocado, and second years you can do whatever fruit you want. I just want you to mix some colors and make sure you get some color blends and some realistic looks to your fruit. And then, of course, I want the salt background. So I hope you guys enjoy this project. I can't wait to see what you turn in. Have a great week.